Well, how do I even approach this? I grew up in the countryside, essentially outside of Ithaca, New York. That's the Finger Lakes region of upstate New York. And we owned land around our place. And so I grew up as a child roaming through the woods. And both my parents were biologists, so they interested me in nature and the study of the out of doors. And then my very first job in high school actually was managing a nature preserve. So that really led directly into my pursuit of this field in college, professionally, and then in graduate school. So I've basically spent my entire life roaming around the forest and the woods in one way or another. Well, a forest basically is far more than just a collection of trees. We might think of a grove possibly as something more like an orchard, or as a small stand or group of trees that we have in our backyard or on our farm or something like that. A forest is a very holistic concept that refers to that whole ecosystem of organisms that are required for everything to work. For that system to carry out all the functions that we depend on. And so the forest includes the trees, certainly, but it includes all the other plants, all the wildlife, and of course everything that's happening below ground in the soil system as well. Austria is a beautiful country. We all know this. I think it's one of the most beautiful countries in the world. And that includes the forest, but it includes every aspect of the landscape. Certainly the Alps, the cultural landscape, and other things. So, I was attracted to the natural beauty there. But to answer your question more specifically, I actually began my research in Europe almost 20 years ago, and not really initially focused on Austria, but rather focused on the Carpathian mountain region of Central and Eastern Europe. So I began working in the Carpathian mountain region primarily because one of my areas of specialty is the study of old growth forests. These are primary forests that have never been logged before. They tend to have very unique features, very unique habitats. And there's a global appreciation now that old growth forests are of exceptional conservation value. And so I had been working on the study of old growth forests in North America for many years. And I became aware that the Carpathian Mountains harbor some exceptional old growth forests. Actually, they contain Europe's largest remaining stands or areas of old growth, primary, primeval, whatever word you want to use, forests that are left on the continent. So that originally drew me to that region. Over time, the research expanded out across all 7 Carpathian countries, and Vienna and Austria was always a very convenient base of operations for all of this. It was really a gateway city to that part of Europe. So I did my initial sabbatical there in 2013, and then of course my most recent one in 2021, which was my Fulbright scholarship. And again, because of its central location and proximity to this region that I work in. But the Fulbright project itself was a pan-European study, so not just the Carpathian region, but actually 13 countries across Europe, including Austria. And this developed as an outcome of having spent so much time there over the years and developing collaborations with institutions across Europe that over time led to these much larger studies that, of course, Austria was part of. So these days, I also do work in Austria as I do in many other parts of Europe. So I've developed actually a new appreciation for the forests there, for the forestry, and for the scientific community in Austria. Well, that was really at the heart of my Fulbright project, as a matter of fact. My project was called Bridging the Divide Between North America and Europe around Sustainable Forest Management. And the idea was that there are areas of commonality in terms of how we manage forests. And we have some common concerns these days around natural disturbances, for example. Maybe forest fire primarily in the United States, whereas in Europe, a lot more of the concern is around insects like bark beetles and also windstorms, but also increasingly fire, as a matter of fact. There was commonality between the US and Europe around some of those interests, but there were also some real differences. Austria, in particular, is an example of a place where they really know how to manage forests well. Austria has been doing it professionally for probably 200 years or more. And they've perfected the art of managing forests in a very efficient way, primarily for the production of timber and wood products. However, it's a very intensive form of management. Austria also has beautiful beech forests and oak forests in some places, particularly in the Wienerwald, the Vienna woods, and some lower elevation areas. But the majority of the forests are these very intensively managed spruce forests. As compared to the US, where we have some history of that in regions like the Pacific Northwest and increasingly the Southeast, but other regions like where I live, where we manage our forests using much less intensive methods. We try to manage using natural processes a little bit more closely. We manage for a broader array of habitats and forest conditions, not this intensive industrial style of forestry. Recently, there has been new thinking in both North America and Europe around new ways of managing forests. In Europe, they call it close to nature silviculture. Here in the US, we call it ecological silviculture. I was interested in bridging the divide between these two new ideas. My sense is that the Fulbright project was very successful. We achieved our primary outcome, which was to bring together this large group of scientists from across Europe, more than 20 of us, including several forest scientists at a major university in Vienna, the University of Natural Resources and Life Sciences. We brought this group together and published a very important study in a high-impact, prestigious international journal proposing a new way, a new framework for sustainably managing forests in Europe. So that was our primary goal, and that's why I was there in Austria on this Fulbright, what I was there facilitating, aside from teaching at the university as well. And we achieved that, so we published this paper. So that was the short-term outcome, but I think the longer-term outcome has been even more important in that this research generated a lot of buzz. It generated a lot of interest, has led to a lot of stimulating dialogue and conversations. So I've presented this paper and this research now at numerous conferences all over Europe, as has the lead author. Her name is Réka Asalos. She's a scientist at the Hungarian Center for Ecological Research. She was the lead author. I was the senior author. This was a very close collaboration over the years. She had done her Fulbright with me at the University of Vermont in the US, which had initiated the project. And then I went to Vienna to do my Fulbright to finish the project, to complete this. So very interesting kind of bilateral exchange of Fulbright scholars. So both of us, Dr. Asalos and I, have been presenting this research everywhere that we possibly can. And again, it's generated a lot of buzz. And I think it's really moved the needle in Europe around some of these conversations. I've seen these ideas now incorporated into very high-level policies and planning documents and reports coming out at the EU level or being produced by major pan-European research groups like the European Forest Institute And then at maybe the more grassroots level, we've conducted a series of workshops with foresters and wildlife biologists, conservationists in several different countries, in Romania, in Hungary, in Czech Republic. And these have been wildly successful in bringing together the actual practitioners, the people that are doing this forest management and conservation on the ground, and introducing them to these ideas, and of course learning from them, learning about the things that they're trying. And again, I see the needle moving. I feel like we're pushing the dialogue and the conversation, and it's having a very positive impact on the field. Well, I can't recommend the Fulbright Scholars Program highly enough. I found it to be an incredibly stimulating opportunity, life-changing in many ways. And the advice is relatively simple. Just make the most of it. Use it as an opportunity to think and to explore new ideas and to write and to give yourself that space as an academic for that kind of intellectual exploration that it can be so hard to find time for in our normal daily university jobs, when our time is so fragmented by teaching and advising and committee work and so many other things. So really indulge those intellectual interests. Also use it as an opportunity to just simply meet and network and dialogue with as many different people as you possibly can. I think you'll find that you'll learn so much in that process, and it will really be a mind-broadening opportunity. And learn about your place. Don't just go there to do research in your own narrow field. I mean, learn about Austria, learn about its culture, its history, its people, its landscape, and expand your understanding of how all of that fits together. Austria is a fascinating place to be, and you can just learn so much. And enjoy yourself, enjoy your time, take advantage of the culture there, and the mountains and all of the opportunities that the country offers. If I had one additional piece of advice to offer for future Fulbright scholars in Austria, it would be this. Take advantage of your cohort of Fulbright scholars. Get to know them, hang out with them, learn from them, and enjoy their company. For me, this is what made my experience. So a shout out to my Fulbright companions. That support that we gave each other was what made it one of the most valuable experiences of my career. So I think it'll be a great experience, and take advantage of all of it.